Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the science of managing groups and teams, and how you can transform an everyday group of people into an absolute powerhouse of a team. I mean, if you've ever wondered why some teams just instantly click while others, well, completely fall apart, you're in the exact right place. We're going to dive into some foundational research on organizational behavior to show you how the very best teams are designed, managed, and sustained over the long haul.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. We'll start with part 1, from groups to teams, then we'll hit part 2, the stages of teamwork, 3, designing for success, 4, breaking down team barriers, and we'll wrap up with part 5, ethics, culture, and sustainability. Let's just jump right in.
All right. Section 1, from groups to teams. First things first, we need to clear up a fundamental difference here. We toss the words group and team around like they mean the exact same thing, right? But honestly, there is a massive difference. A group is really just a collection of individuals. Everyone has their own personal agenda, and the rewards are entirely individual. You're just responsible for your own output. But a team? That's a totally different beast. A team is a cohesive coalition. It's all about collaborative action, where compensation is based on shared outcomes, and most importantly, it involves mutual sacrifice. Think about a soccer match. A player will gladly pass the ball, giving up their own chance to score, just so the team can win collectively. That's the mindset.
And look, if you are a manager, knowing this difference goes straight to your bottom line. Getting your team composition right is a total game changer. Research from the Society for Human Resource Management, or SHRM, found that appropriately matched teams actually run 15 to 20% hotter on their output. To put that into perspective, not only are they way more productive, but people in these well-matched teams actually tend to stick around at the company a lot longer too. Plus, moving from a siloed group into a real, functioning team unlocks so many other incredible benefits. It gives people autonomy, it supercharges shared learning, and it directly boosts job satisfaction. We're talking about increasing organizational commitment while literally mitigating workplace stress. When you function as a tight unit, you naturally start to break down those clunky, rigid organizational hierarchies, which just makes the whole workplace feel way more dynamic.
Moving right along to Section 2, the stages of teamwork.
So a cohesive team definitely doesn't just magically appear on day one. Think of it like human development, growing from childhood into adulthood. Bruce Tuckman's classic 1965 model shows this perfectly, charting how teams evolve through predictable stages: forming, storming, norming, performing, and finally adjourning. What you really need to take away here is that leadership can't be static. You don't manage a brand new, forming team the same way you'd handle a veteran, performing one. As a leader, you have to adapt, starting off highly directive, shifting into more of a coach during the rocky storming and norming phases, and eventually just delegating once the team is humming along on its own.
But hey, let's be real. Team development is rarely that perfectly smooth. The punctuated equilibrium model gives us a slightly different lens. It shows that groups actually tend to experience long, sluggish periods of systemic inertia where, frankly, not much changes. And then, bam, a crisis or a major problem hits, and it triggers these short, revolutionary bursts of innovation. For teams that get this, a period of chaos isn't a failure at all. It's literally an amazing window of opportunity to get creative and restructure.
Okay, let's look at Section 3, designing for success.
The reality is, brilliant teams don't happen by accident. They are engineered. One of the absolute best ways to set yourself up for success is to build a team contract right out of the gate. Think of it as a roadmap for when things inevitably veer off course. By getting incredibly explicit about your shared values, your core goals, and the boring everyday norms like who takes the meeting notes, how prepared do you need to be, is it okay to openly critique someone's work, you completely remove the guesswork. Setting these norms early dictates just how cohesive the team will actually be. And this kind of deliberate design is absolutely vital at the very top of the food chain. Top management teams don't just set the vision, they play a massive symbolic role. The way the C-suite behaves literally dictates the culture for the entire company. Like this idea highlights, having diversity in both function and demographics is crucial, but a top management team has to actually operate collaboratively. They can't just be a loose group of competing executives fiercely protecting their own departments.
Which brings us to Section 4, breaking down team barriers.
Because even the most beautifully designed teams are going to face hurdles. Take the concept of a fault line. Imagine a team cleanly divided by age or gender. Let's say all the women are over 50 and all the men are under 25. You've basically just created a severe invisible wall. People in these subgroups often avoid communicating across the divide, and it absolutely crushes team cohesiveness. The research shows that teams with deep fault lines struggle to make effective decisions and suffer from a serious lack of creativity.
So how do we actually fix these things? Well, if your team is floundering and nobody knows how to get a project moving, you have to hit pause and revisit the core mission to clarify the goals. If you've got those dominating members who suck up all the oxygen in the room, try adding balance of participation as a metric in their official performance reviews. And to stop social loafing, where that one person just hides in the group and lets everyone else do the heavy lifting, you have to assign highly specific, highly visible individual tasks. Basically, make it impossible for anyone to hide.
When you manage to clear those hurdles, something really incredible happens. You build collective efficacy. It's basically the group's shared deep-down belief that they can actually succeed. It's that undeniable, we got this vibe. And the data absolutely backs this up. When a group genuinely believes in their collective capability, their actual measurable performance goes through the roof.
Bringing us to our final part, Section 5, Ethics, Culture, and Sustainability. Because look, teams don't operate in a vacuum. A team's dynamic heavily relies on the macro-level forces around it, starting with ethical leadership. Recent studies coming out of the education sector show that ethical leadership isn't just some HR buzzword. It directly fosters ethical work behavior in employees and drives up their commitment to the organization. When leaders model high standards, people are actually much less reluctant to speak up and expose rule violations. The leader's actions send a clear signal about exactly what is and isn't tolerated. In zooming out to a global scale, national culture changes the game completely. Data from the Globe Project, which looked at cultural values across 62 different societies, shows that in countries with high collectivism, like Mexico and Taiwan, the culture strongly prioritizes the group over the individual. Loyalty is everything, so teammates there tend to evaluate their in-group members much higher. Compare that to low collectivism places like the US or Australia, where it's much more about individual achievement. If you're managing a global team, you absolutely have to understand these cultural baselines.
Now, to ground all these big abstract ideas in the real world, let's take a look at New Seasons Market. They're a really popular, privately held grocery chain up in the Pacific Northwest, and they've pretty much built their entire identity around serving the local community and giving their employees a ton of freedom.
Here's how they put all this theory into practice. Green teams. Every single one of their stores has a green team made up of up to 13 paid employees, and management essentially hands them the reins. They grant them the total freedom to tackle local sustainability issues however they see fit, whether that's organizing wetland cleanups, planting community gardens, or putting together these elaborate employee carpool programs that actually offer monthly gift card incentives. By giving these diverse teams the autonomy to take action, New Seasons Market aligns collaborative teamwork with shared ethical values. It is a perfect, real-world example of taking a regular group of employees and turning them into a high-performing team that makes a genuine impact.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. Tomorrow, when you walk into work, really look at the people around you. Think about your shared goals and how much you actually rely on one another. Ask yourself, are you just a group of people protecting your own individual agendas, or are you truly a team? Honest answer might just change the way you work entirely. Thanks so much for hanging out with me to explore this.